wizard, Harry.
What's up, wizards, witches, Death Eaters, and potions experts? It's time once again to hop on the Hogwarts Express and go back to school. Welcome back to Potter Watch, a podcast within a podcast where we go through the entire Harry Potter series, book by book and movie by movie. We are your magical co-hosts, Spencer, Gabe, and Sam, and today we'll be discussing Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince in depth, and we'll also be spoiling the entire series. So if you haven't read or watched the whole series, then you may want to go do that first. But before we get going, check the description for links to our socials like Twitter and Discord, a link to our Patreon where you can watch these episodes live as we record them, hang out in the chat with us, comment, all that stuff. And yeah, with that, we're going to get right into the episode because today, at the time of this recording, is Super Bowl Sunday. So we're trying to get I think the only person here who really cares about it is Sam. So we're trying to
watch
get
the game.
Are you going to?
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not huge into football, but I do enjoy watching the Super Bowl.
Okay. Yeah. See, I'm just going to be at home. I actually have another podcast after this one. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm just at home doing podcast stuff today.
Yeah. I wasn't really into this season of football because I did fantasy football for the first time this year. But as soon as we were done, because that was weeks ago that fantasy football ended, I couldn't have cared less anymore whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
but anyway, going into our general thoughts, I wanted to touch on how we're going to be going about the rest of these Potter Watch episodes, because I had it planned this way for a while, but it even it made it more so in the past couple days where I finished Half-Blood Prince. And it is my favorite book in the entire series. And I got to the end of it, and I was like, how do I not immediately listen to the Deathly Hallows?
Yeah.
So as soon as I finished it, I started up the Deathly Hallows, and I've been listening to that. And there is so much that happens in the first half of that book. Like just the first half of that book is like an entire episode. Like, it could honestly be, like, multiple episodes. Like, that first half is packed with so many things. And the plan this whole time has been to end our first Deathly Hallows episode where the movie ends. So split it into two parts. And at the end of Deathly Hallows Part 1, the movie, that is Dobby's funeral scene. And so I think what we'll do is we'll read Deathly Hallows up until that happens, and then record an episode on all of that content, and then we'll just do the next half of the book in the next episode. So that's a long way of saying it'll be split into two parts. It's going to be split where Dobby dies, and that's how we'll do it, because in my re-listen as I'm going through Deathly Hallows right now, I'm almost to the point where Dobby is about to die, and I'm like, yeah, this is like plenty of content for an episode. Like, I think it makes a lot of sense to split it in two, and then even at that point, I still have like 6 or 7 hours in the audiobook left. So I'm like, yeah, there's plenty to talk about there. Yeah, do you guys feel good about that? Just splitting it where the movie splits it?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So, Sam, I've been dying to get your thoughts, because prior to this, I don't know if it was on an episode that anybody would have seen, or if it was just like we were talking about it backstage or what, but one of the last times that we did an episode together, you had said like I'm just getting like burnt out on Harry Potter right now. It still feels like really like kiddish at the moment. And you're like, I just need some like adult fantasy that's like maybe a little darker, a little grittier. And I told you, I'm like, please, please just read The Half-Blood Prince. Everything you want will be starting from that book, and then Deathly Hallows, like you will have everything you want.
Mhm.
And so you had thought we were recording this last week when we were doing our
Mhm.
interview with Kelcade, and I was so surprised by your text. You're like, I've been dying to talk about this book because I loved it so much.
Mhm.
So talk about going from I want to know what it was like going from that mindset of like I'm just getting burnt out on Harry Potter and then going into Half-Blood Prince. How quickly did that flip-flop?
I would say almost immediately because it really starts right away in the
Yeah.
book. You know, it's just immediate and I felt like the tone was very different. You know how in the movies each like opening credit gets darker as the movies go
Yeah.
on? Like I feel like you really felt that right away in this book that like, okay, this is kind of when everything's coming to a head, like something is going to be happening and it's
Right.
gonna be big and it's gonna be soon. So I couldn't stop. I actually listened to it. I didn't end up physically reading it. I listened
Oh.
to it. And I think I sat at my kitchen table one day and was just painting and listening to it. I think
Yeah.
I did it for like 6 hours straight.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
My husband
awesome.
didn't even come home and he was like, "What do you wanna watch?" And I was like, "I don't wanna watch anything. Leave me alone." Like, and I never
Yeah.
got up to post it and just listen to something at my kitchen table when he's like 5 feet from me. And
Yeah.
did it for like 2 more hours after he had gotten home. I just didn't
Oh
there
man.
was no like spot I wanted to pause and say like, "Okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
like, when I'm gonna come back to it." Um,
Yeah.
there were definitely a few parts of it where I was like, "All right, come on," you know,
Yeah.
where things that they didn't figure out, like the room of requirement, that was one of
Yeah.
them that it was just like, "Oh my god, you guys, come on."
Yeah.
Or the Felix Felicia's potion. It was like, "Come on, it's right there. You've had this for
Right.
quarters of the book. Use it."
Right. Yeah.
And the only other thing was I really got annoyed a little bit with Harry, just the nonstop Malfoy. I understood where it was coming from, and it sucked that his friends were like, "You're being crazy," because it
Yeah.
could come off that way. And there were parts of it like, I get it. You're following Malfoy everywhere. You know he's up to something. Nobody believes you, but let's move on. Like,
Right.
like let's do
Yeah.
something else. But it was just so fast paced compared to the other ones. There was so much stuff going
Yes.
on, and it was really more you've been working on a puzzle for so long and now you finally have enough pieces that you're really starting to see the big
Yep.
picture.
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I loved this book. It really, you were not wrong. I absolutely loved
I'm so glad. This is my favorite in the series, and like as I'm going through Deathly Hallows, I'm like, man, Deathly Hallows like Half-Blood Prince is my favorite, but I think Deathly Hallows is better. Like I think does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I personally love Half-Blood Prince, but like
Mhm.
now that I'm going through Deathly Hallows, I'm like I think it's just like it just gets better and better and better. Like it is so absolutely insane. And going through the Half-Blood Prince, I'm like this has got to be mind blowing to Sam because the movie, I think the movie was actually done really, really well. I don't have too many complaints with the movie for this one.
I just won and I had texted you guys about it.
What
The
was
one
that?
where they leave out Voldemort's family
Yes,
with the
yeah.
pensive and all of that. And I was like, this is so interesting. Why was this
Mm-hmm.
not in the movies?
Yeah, they definitely leave out a lot. There's not too many things that they change completely, um, but this is definitely one of those books where like you read the book and you watch the movie and you're like there is mountains of context that you are just missing if you've
Mhm,
only seen the movie.
mhm.
Like there is there is so much. Like, you never get the scene showing that Voldemort came back. Like, as he was changing into Voldemort, he came
Hmm.
back and he asked Dumbledore for a job. Um, and he's like, I want to teach here. And Dumbledore is like, I don't think you really do. I think you're up to something.
Yeah.
You just want them
Um,
in school, and
yeah,
that's it. Or to recruit an army, essentially, is what he says.
right. Yeah, like he's got some sort of plan, and that comes into play in a big way in Deathly Hallows. Like, I don't like, obviously, like, we're spoiling stuff, but I don't need to like spoil that for this episode, but I'll just say, like, there's a reason why Voldemort was there that day specifically, that gets revealed in Deathly Hallows, and so it makes me it unless in the Deathly Hallows movie maybe they put that scene in there or something, I don't know, but I'm like, you kind of need that scene for what plays out in the Deathly Hallows book. So I don't know. I'm interested to see how the movies kind of dance around that, because I don't think I've seen the Deathly Hallows movie. I think when I first read the Harry Potter books a couple years ago, I watched all the way through the Half-Blood Prince, and then I got distracted with other stuff, and I never watched the Deathly Hallows movies. So I'll be excited to see how they do that exactly.
Do you
Um,
know in the movies, because I hadn't known until I read The Half-Blood Prince, that Voldemort's father was Muggle.
mhm,
That was big news to me. I had no
right?
idea, and I don't know if that's ever revealed in the movies.
I
I
don't
don't.
think it
Yeah, I don't think
is.
so.
Yeah,
Which
I
is crazy
think.
because that's like a huge. That's a big deal, you
Yeah,
know.
it's a huge component because it tells you so much about his character. Like,
Yeah.
he's doing this whole thing where he's like, we're gonna get rid of like half-bloods and muggles and mudbloods and all this stuff. But it's like he's compensating because he hates his own
Mhm.
heritage.
Yeah, its
Like,
own lineage.
that's a big part of his character. Like that,
Mhm.
like him, like hating himself and hating where he came from, lends so much context to like what he's doing.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, I think it's crazy to like to leave that out.
Mhm.
Um, what about you, Gabe? Doing this will be your, I believe, second read through of the book. So what did you think of Half Blood Prince this time around?
Yeah. It was a little while because I had read it when I was, read the books when I was younger, and then
Right.
when you started reading them and got infatuated, I was like, all right, I'll go through and listen to him. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think Sam said it really well. I think it's this is kind of like the culmination of a lot of setup, right? A lot
Hmm.
of plot setup that's been happening, and like, little secrets we're finding out, and to now see it actually, like, this is it. This is when everything changes. This is the book
Mhm.
Right.
where the world changes, right?
Yeah.
The power dynamic is changing swiftly.
Hmm.
um we lose Albus. That's huge.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on, and I'm very excited to read the next couple of books.
I know, me
Yeah.
too. Like, the you talked about a power shift there, and pretty much like as soon as you start the Deathly Hallows, you feel the power shift. Like,
Yeah.
there are things that happen at Hogwarts where new people are in
Yep.
control, and like
Yep.
it's like, what, like at the end of this book, McGonagall takes over Dumbledore's office.
Yep.
And they're like talking in now McGonagall's office, headmistress's office, and I had forgotten about that, and I was like, "Oh, that doesn't stay that way for very
Nope,
long."
not very
Like,
long. Yep.
so that would have been interesting though, to see a year of McGonagall being headmistress. That would have
She would
been
have been
kind of
an
cool.
awesome headmistress, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Um, So I have a couple things here. We do have some YouTube comments from last time that are pretty interesting. We had talked to Katie, who had given us some good insight into like she watches our episodes and she'll kind of give us a bullet point list responding to things that we've said. Um, she says, "Thank you for reading out my comments from your last video. Here's some thoughts I had after watching this one." And this is in response to Order of the Phoenix.
Mm.
She says, "I think Dumbledore rescued Umbridge because if the centaurs had killed her, there may have been massive ramifications for the centaurs, especially as she was an employee of Fudge's." Which is interesting because I didn't really think about that. Like, I'm sure the Ministry would have had some backlash for
Oh,
the
for sure.
centaurs. I really enjoy this book, and I think Harry's angry outbursts are completely understandable. There's something cathartic about him shouting at the people who deserve it. I'm glad when Hermione calls him out on this attitude towards her and Ron, though. Harry is not only sharing emotions with Voldemort, he's also suffering from PTSD from Cedric dying in front of him and
Yeah.
Voldemort trying to kill him. On top of that, he had to go back to the Dursleys for weeks with hardly any communication, and then Dumbledore ignores him all year and people tell him he's a liar. So yeah, if he didn't act that way, if he didn't act the way he does, it wouldn't be very realistic. I can
Yeah.
understand people having a hard time with this book, though. It's definitely the most divisive in the series. I think Rowling was brave to write the main character as unlikable, but I think it works and can't imagine this book without his attitude. When Harry receives Sirius's gift, the mirror, he
Yep.
tells himself he will never open it because he thinks it will get Sirius into trouble and doesn't want to jeopardize Sirius's safety. He then puts it in his trunk and forgets about it because he was never going to use it. It is a shame that Sirius never explains exactly what this is to Harry, but I do like how the mirror comes back into play in book 7. There's also a moment to look out for in book 6, which explains how a certain character ends up with the other side of Sirius's mirror. Did anybody catch this? I'm curious.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Mundungus Fletcher is
Oh.
stealing stuff
Oh.
from number 12 Grimmauld Place.
Yeah.
And he's going into Hogsmeade to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Mhm.
Interesting. I forgot about that. Yeah, because there's a
Yep.
couple like, little scenes, that don't get mentioned again throughout the book, so you kind of like forget.
Yeah.
Like Snape with Malfoy's mom and
Yeah.
Bellatrix. That's like right in the beginning. There's a couple like little ones that
Mhm.
so much happened that you kind of forget, like that Mundungus stole all of that stuff from what is Harry's house now.
Right. Yep. Yep. And then Sam, you were asking about the Cormoran Strike series, which is Rowling's other series made under the pseudonym about the he's like a private investigator or whatever. And so I think Katie has some more information about that. She says, J.K. Rowling writes the Cormoran Strike series under a pseudonym, Robert Galbraith. She wanted to write a new series without having the pressure or hype that came with Harry Potter and to be judged on the merit of her writing, not her identity. When the first book was published, no one knew that she wrote it, and it received positive reviews and won a prize. Then 3 months later, oh yeah, I remember reading this. This is interesting. Then 3 months later, the Sunday Times received an anonymous tip that J.K. Rowling had written the book, so they hired someone to confirm this,
Oh my God.
who figured it out in half an hour by using computer software. The paper
Wow.
then confronted her and she confessed. She was understandably upset about this, but I think she now takes as long as she needs with writing the books, although she is churning them out pretty quickly, even without outside pressure. The first book came out in 2013, and she's now writing book 9, with book 8 being released later this year. Looking forward to future videos. Books 6 and 7 are my favorites in the series. Awesome. Yeah. Isn't that super interesting about the her other series? It's
What was the
like
name of that series? You said Cormorant
yeah,
or
Cormoran Strike. So
okay,
Cormoran Strike.
sweet.
Okay, cool. So other general thoughts. I thought the movie was amazing. I thought it was really really good. It changes some things and it leaves some things out, but that's to be expected from a movie in general. It's hard to fit everything into 2 hours or two and a half
Mhm.
hours or whatever. So I don't really judge it for that. But I thought the visual appeal of this movie was so good. Everything, all of the colors were pulled way back and gave it this like darker, grittier tone. Everything was filmed with like just like really beautiful just like camera work in general, just like the perspective they put the camera at, or like these big like close-ups on the
Yep.
characters' faces. And I thought it was beautiful. I loved the way it looked. Um, and then also with the movie, the the actress that plays Lavender in the movies is so funny. I
Yep.
love her. She is so good.
Yeah.
What's the scene? I have it written down here. It's the scene where she is Ron has been like poisoned and he's in the
The
medical
hospital.
wing.
Infirmary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lavender comes in and oh, that's right. She sees Hermione uh next to the bed and she says, "I imagine you want to be with him now that he's all interesting." and and Hermione says, "He's been poisoned, you daft bimbo." and, and he's like starting to murmur, and she says, "He senses my presence. Don't worry, Wan Wan, I'm here." And all of the teachers are just like watching, like they're all just standing there watching this take place. And and then Ron says Hermione's name in his sleep, and then Lavender runs out. And this movie had so much comedy. Like it was like a surprising amount of comedy. I was watching this last night, and I was like cracking up all the time. Did anybody else notice how funny this movie was? Like I there was some moments that just had me dying. And that was one of them. And then Dumbledore says, "Oh, to be young and feel love's
Yeah,
keen
that's
sting."
right.
And they're all just like, I just love how they're all, you would have thought that they would have all like walked away or something, but they're all standing there watching this drama unfold. And Dumbledore says this line. And then he actually has a really sweet line where he says, "Come away, everyone. Mr. Weasley is well tended."
Yeah.
And like Hermione's like holding his hand, and Harry kind of hangs back and smiles at Hermione. That was a great scene. Um, but there was so much comedy in the movie. There's another one right before that scene, where uh, they Ron was in the dorm room, and Harry comes in, and Ron is sitting in front of the fireplace surrounded by chocolate wrappers. Like he had dug
Yes.
into like Harry's like box of chocolates.
Yeah.
And he's all like got his love potion thing going on, and Harry's like just talking to him, and Ron's like, "I think I love her," and Harry thinks that he's talking about Lavender, and he's like, "Do you think she exists?" He's like, "Well, I would assume so. You've been snogging her all year." And Harry it was just like perfect comedic timing. I think these actors have gotten so good at like these particular roles at this point in the series. And Harry like goes to get into his bed. He's like sitting halfway on his bed, and Ron comes flying in and sits in the bed with him, and they're just like squished into like this little twin-sized bed, and there's this close up on their faces, and Harry just kind of like looks over to Ron, and Ron's like staring at him, and Harry just kind of like slides out the bed. I was I was dying. I was like, this is so funny. And I think one of the reasons why I like the movie so much is that it balances these really, really dark moments and themes, and of course, like a heartbreaking ending with this random like levity that is done so well. Yeah, I did not expect to be like laughing my way through this entire movie in a good way.
Yeah, this movie has my favorite, and it's like 2 words, but it's my favorite scene in all of the movies. It's when Harry's taken the Felicius, I can never say it correctly,
Felicis.
the liquid luck,
Hmm.
and he's with Slughorn, and Slughorn says to him, like, Harry, and he goes, sir.
Yeah.
And it makes me laugh every time. Every time. It just the way Harry says,
I
sir.
know.
I
Sir.
every time. It is just so funny.
Oh my
So
God. Yeah, I wrote that down somewhere in my notes because it was so good. Like
yeah.
he's like, I think I'm gonna go down to Hagrid's, and he's like, you can't go down there alone, and he's like, well, I need to go see him, and he's like walking away, and Slughorn's just like, Harry, and he turns around real quick and he goes, sir. Like, oh my God, it's such good comedic timing. I'm like,
So
that
great.
I was not expecting that from this movie. And like I've seen it before, but I just don't think I like noticed it as much. It was so good.
Every time the scene comes on when I've watched the movie, I text my sister and I go, Harry, sir. And she
Sir.
knows exactly what I'm talking about and just dies.
Oh.
I
Oh, go ahead,
I
Gabe.
was just gonna say a scene that I found incredibly funny and just like super well done was like maybe 3 seconds, but it's when Harry and Ron get to potions class and they tell Slughorn, we don't have books, and this is in the movie, we don't have books. He's
Yeah.
like, okay, go to the cabinet, and they both walk up to the cabinet, pause, and then just like wrestle each
Yeah.
other out of the way, and they're trying to grab him, and then they walk away, and Harry smacks him with the book. And
Yeah.
I was like, dude, that was funny. Like,
It's
I wonder
such
if
a
it looked improv. Like, I bet you they were like,
right.
go be boys. Like, go be
Yeah,
teenage
go
boys.
be boys.
And I was
Yeah.
like, that's awesome, dude.
And that's really what this movie felt like. It felt
Yeah.
like, and like the previous movies were extremely well acted too, but this one, it felt like they were given free reign to
Yeah.
be teenage boys and girls. Like it felt very true to what like you or I would have been like in high school.
Mhm.
And even the scene with there's this one where they're both in bed and it's like late at night, and Harry and Ron are just like talking to each other, and Ron asks Harry, he's like, what do you think Dean sees in Ginny? Like, why is he dating her? And Harry kind of goes down this list. She's like, well, she's really nice, she's really attractive, like she's got great skin. And they're like kind of like talking about Ginny, and Ron's like, huh, okay, like I wouldn't have noticed that. And then they're like both laying there, and Ron says, Hermione has good skin, don't you think? And Harry's kind of laying there. He's like, I never really thought about it before, but yeah, I guess so. I guess she does. And Ron goes, huh? And it's like quiet for a second, and then Harry's like, I'm gonna go to sleep now. And they're like, okay, and they go to bed. I'm like, that is so like on point for what that situation would be like for a teenage boy. I'm sure I've had conversations just like that. And so it was great. I thought they had a lot of fun with this movie, and I think they just did an amazing job
Yeah, or like in
Um,
the book, something that made me laugh really hard, and I didn't have a chance to rewatch the movie today. I
mhm,
watched it when we were originally going to do the recording,
sure.
and the book made me laugh, and I was like, I can't remember if this is in the movie. Is when Ron is poisoned and he's in the infirmary, and they have like the Quidditch game that he
Yeah.
can't go to. They won't let him, and Luna is doing the like
Yes.
Oh
I
yes.
I have
prison
that written down.
thing.
Oh my
And he says
god.
to her later, Luna, you did a great job. He says, like, it made me laugh more than anything. I hope you keep doing it. And she thinks he's making fun of her. And he's like,
Mhm.
no, like, I loved that.
I loved that. That was so good. I love Luna commentating.
Love her.
Oh
Love her.
my
It was
god. And she's
amazing.
like going off on all of these other tangents to the point where like McGonagall has to like grab the microphone from her and be like, point to Slytherin or whatever, like,
Yeah.
because Luna's just like off doing her
Yeah.
own thing.
Yeah. I was like, that would be me. Just going off
Yeah.
into tangents. Like, oh, this made me think of this. So let me just tell everyone, even though it has nothing to do with what we're actively watching.
Right, yeah. Or
Oh,
like, then she'll be like, and there goes Harry Potter, such a nice boy. He was nice enough to invite me to Slughorn's party. He's a real friend. Like,
yeah.
it's just like, what? That's so good. It's so
Oh,
good. I
that made me
love it.
laugh. That was great.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the comedy both in the book and the movie is it I I think that it's probably hard to write comedy for like children.
Mhm.
But then once you start getting like a young adult, like these kids are like 16, 17
Yeah.
now.
Because they're all
And
trying to pass for their test, which you have to be 17 for.
yeah, their
So,
apparition test.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, so it must have given Rowling a little bit more freedom to be like, okay, we can explore some of this more like mature humor. Like there's a joke somewhere in the book about wands, and it's not about how powerful the wand is, but how you use it, or it's not about the size of the wand, it's how you
Yeah.
use it. And I'm like, I see what you did there. Um, there's this random scene in the movie where they're in the three broomsticks. Did anybody else notice this? They're in the three broomsticks, and Slughorn, I think it's when Slughorn comes by and he invites Harry and Hermione
Yeah.
to be in his slug club, and then Ron is just like sitting there and he doesn't get invited. Um, and Hermione has her butterbeer and she like takes a drink of it, and the camera, like she's sitting on the opposite side of Harry and Ron, and so the camera is looking at Harry and Ron, and they both go, "You got a little something there," and it pans back to Hermione, and she's got like butterbeer on the side of her face, and for like a solid 10 seconds, it's just Hermione like wiping her face down, and I was like, what is this scene? Like what did we need like 10 seconds of Hermione wiping butterbeer off her face? Like what is going on? I don't know if anybody else noticed that, but I was
Yeah.
like, what is
Yeah.
this?
She keeps like going over it and over it. It's like, you got it. We're good.
Yeah, you got it.
It's so weird. Okay, so the biggest change that I noticed from the movie to the book was the burrow burning down. And we don't get that in the book. The burrow doesn't burn down. It's not even attacked in the book.
Yeah.
And so I remember when I was reading through Half-Blood Prince this time, I was like, when does the burrow get attacked? Is that this book or the next book? It never happens. The burrow never gets attacked. And so I thought that was really interesting. And so I looked up, I Googled, I was like, why did they make this change? And what Google told me was the filmmakers wanted to add a dramatic visual scene to show the escalating danger of the war, even though this event never happened in the books. They essentially created a scene to heighten the tension and action without considering the narrative consistency with the source material. And I thought this was really interesting because, I mean, if you're looking at it from like a filmmaker point of view, you, as you're reading the book, just through like exposition and narration, you're feeling this tension build and build and build where things are getting more and more dangerous. But in the movie, you don't have like a narration to do that. So you have to find a way to show this escalating. And we get that at the beginning of the movie with the Death Eaters attacking the bridge, and then they attack closer to home with the burrow. And so I don't really hate this change at all. I think it's interesting that they chose the burrow to do it at, but I guess that would be like kind of close to home for a lot of the people that are viewers. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I was like, oh yeah, that like I don't think I've seen a scene so far in the movies where it like literally does not happen in any way, shape, or form in the book. And so I just thought that was kind of interesting.
The first
Yeah.
thing that I noticed that was different was instead of Tonks getting Harry off the train, it was Luna.
Yeah, in the movie, it was Luna. That was the first
Or
thing I
that's
was
yeah,
in
that's
the
what I
beginning
meant.
of the
Yeah,
book.
yeah. Because I was like,
Uh-huh.
"Where's Tonks, dude? What the heck?"
Yeah.
Yeah. That was I noticed that when I was and she's got her
Yep, those whatever
she's
that
got her
thing.
glasses.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the thing that she's talking about, but like, yeah, they go through your ears and through your head and cause you, to have fuzzy thoughts or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
And she
That
looks
Right.
at
was
Harry.
still
Harry,
in
your
the
your
book.
head's full of them.
Yeah. It was still in the book, but then Tonks is the one who finds them.
Weird.
Right.
Yeah, and
That
then like Lupin's kind of love story. I feel like they were just like a couple in the movie.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true.
What it
And
was.
and that was really that was a really interesting like side story in the book. And so I was kind of bummed that they didn't have it in the movie. That was something I noticed was like they leave the burrow and Tonks is like, "Come on, babe," or whatever she says. And
Sweetie.
it's like, "Oh, they're they're like already together." Interesting.
Or the movies didn't portray Floor as a raging B word.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh my God, yes.
Yeah,
I
but
have
I loved the scene of her and Molly at the end in the book. I really loved
Oh,
that.
yes. That was so good where she's like, "I think I am beautiful for the both of us." That was such a good scene because Molly, you could really tell what she thought of Floor. Like I couldn't stand Floor.
Yeah.
I'm with everyone else. Like Floor kind of sucked. But you could tell how prejudiced Molly was against her at the end there, where she's like, and he was about to get married.
Yeah.
And Flora's like, she's like, "Do you think he will not love me now?" And then she has this realization. She's like, "Wait a minute. You think that I'm not going to love him?"
Yeah.
She's like, "Shame on you." Like, she's like, "I love this man. Even if he got hit by a werewolf, like that's when she says, I am more than beautiful enough for the both of us. I am good looking enough for the both of us, I think." And like, it's just like, what a fantastic scene.
Yeah.
And then she's like, Molly's like dabbing at Bill's face with like trying to like clean it. And Floor like pushes her aside. She's like, "I will do that." And it's kind of this moment where it's just like the natural like cycle of life, right?
Yeah.
Like the mom kind of steps back and the wife comes in to like care for this man that has previously been cared for by the mom. And it was just like a really good like representation of that, I think. And then Molly like steps back and she's like, "We have a tiara that would look great with your hair for the wedding." And then they like embrace and they like cry together. I'm like, that's a fantastic scene.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
I loved that.
We got Spacey Nova in the chat. Hello.
Nova.
Okay, so I have some fun facts that I'll go through real fast. I'll just like go through like one by one. So it sold the book sold 7 million copies in the States and 2 million copies in the UK. You would think that it would be flip-flopped, but so that's 9 million copies in the first 24 hours.
Wow.
This is a record only broken by its sequel, The Deathly Hallows.
Wow.
So
That's crazy.
that's nuts.
Yeah.
And I love this fun fact section because I'm like, these are like record breaking numbers that we will never see again.
Yeah.
Like we will never. Although I did hear some rumors that Onyx Storm, the third book of the Fourth Wing series, or Endymion or whatever it's called, that is also breaking records, which
Wow.
is crazy to me because it seems like the second book was mostly hated by everyone. So this record-breaking thing led Scholastic to scramble to print. They had no idea it was going to sell this much. Like they knew it was going to sell really well. They had like, I think they had like 10 million copies printed, but they were like, oh my God, this is literally going to sell out. It almost sold out in 24 hours. We only have 1 million copies left. We need to like hurry and print millions of more copies and send them out as soon as possible. Because this was completely unprecedented at the time. Nobody had heard of a book selling almost 10 million copies in 24 hours.
Yeah,
they were like, this is bonkers. So
were the books done before the movies started?
Yeah. Well, no. When book 2 came out, movie 1 came out. And so then when book 3 came out, when book 3 came out, movie 2 came out. If that makes sense. So the movies were like one behind.
Yeah. Just because of that, I could almost believe, the numbers, just because once people get into the movies, more of them will purchase the books, and the movies are such a huge hit that
it was a perfect storm.
Yeah.
It was like, I literally, Mike's book reviews, he's said this a number of times on his channel, and at first I didn't agree with him, but the more I learn about this stuff, I tend to agree with him that I don't think we will ever see anything like this ever again in our lifetime. Like, people say, like, oh, the last book of, like, Game of Thrones or whatever, and it's like, yeah, but that wouldn't be in the middle of, like, this perfect storm of hype for Harry Potter like it was at the time. Like, at the time, it was absolutely bonkers. And I brought up Onyx Storm earlier, and apparently like Barnes and Noble and Targets were doing like midnight releases, and for the first time since Harry Potter, they were seeing people like lined up outside the store to get this book, and they were like, selling out all their copies and stuff. And so, we may see things like that from time to time, but I don't think we'll ever see anything like Harry Potter ever again.
The only thing that comes to mind is like Twilight was huge.
That
was another big one. But other than that, I mean, I haven't even purchased Onyx Storm yet. If that tells you how annoyed I was. I was like, this was so garbage. How did I like this?
Yeah.
I'll get around to it eventually. But yeah, I mean, Harry Potter was kind of,
yeah.
What is it when it's like the perfect storm and
it's just like a zeitgeist, like
like
just this huge wave of hype. And speaking of Twilight, I don't have this written down, but when I was doing research, so this movie came out, Half-Blood Prince came out the same year that Twilight New Moon came out.
Okay.
And Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince broke the record for the box office that Spider-Man 3 previously held. And then a month later, Twilight New Moon came out and broke the record that Half-Blood Prince just made.
Wow.
And so that was pretty interesting. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's cool.
I was looking at the box office facts, and you have some of it written down here. The film made $394 million worldwide in its first 5 days, breaking Spider-Man's record. And then because I was Googling just for some same thing, fun facts. And they gross, dude, approximately $941 million. Like
almost
like
$1 billion.
$1 billion. Like, that's crazy, dude. That's like some serious clout.
That is nuts. That's crazy, dude. That's crazy. Okay, so The audiobook also broke worldwide sales records. And then in early July 2005, this is just crazy. The Canadian, I think the place is called Real Canadian Superstore in Coquitlam, British Columbia, Canada. They accidentally sold 14 copies of the Half-Blood Prince, like way before it was authorized way before the authorized release date. The Canadian publisher Raincoast Books obtained an injunction from the Supreme Court of British Columbia that prohibited the purchasers from reading the books before the official release date or discussing the contents.
Oh, I would have read it anyways.
I know, like, how do you stop it at that point?
Yeah.
Well, that recently happened with Winds of Truth, the new Sanderson.
Wind and Truth.
Yeah, a couple of them got out, and the subreddit, the Sanderson subreddit, had to come out and say, we know some of you have early copies, because it was like 5 days before the actual release, and they like blocked it from being discussed at all on the subreddit.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Right. And I'm never lucky enough to be one of these people.
Right, yeah. How do I accidentally get an early copy? Yeah.
But that's interesting that they had to, like, they went to the Supreme Court and you know.
Isn't that nuts? And then it said yeah, they're trying to prohibit the purchasers, the readers, from reading the books, which is funny because that's of course that's not going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then they offer a reward. They say the people that purchased the books were offered Harry Potter t-shirts and autographed copies of the book if they returned their copies before the 16th of July, which was its release date.
Yeah, no.
I'm like, sorry, I'm gonna want a lot more than a t-shirt.
Yeah,
like,
you guys
this
made
is
$1 billion off the movie, okay? Hook me up.
right. Yeah, for sure. Plus, like, if you purchased that book ahead of time, it's probably like a first edition, like first edition, first printing. There's no way I'm going to give that to someone for them to then, in like 3 or 4 months after a couple printing runs, send me like second edition, 64th printing. Like, hell no. Like, I'm hanging on to my first edition, first printing. Like,
no and kidding. I feel like by the time like they would get around to this, like I would have read it. You know what I mean? We're like ready to play.
Right, exactly.
No thanks.
Something else I thought was funny was Guillermo del Toro turned down the chance to direct Half-Blood Prince in order to direct Hellboy 2.
Great choice there, Guillermo.
Wow.
I'm like, what a...
That's crazy.
That's a choice.
That's a choice.
Like, oh my god, okay.
And with the movies already having been what they were, because it wasn't the first movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was this film, you're saying. Yeah. Why would you turn that down for Hellboy 2?
What a stupid decision. I bet he kicks himself for that.
Oh, I'm sure every day.
Every day.
Every day.
So Radcliffe, Grint, and Watson, the 3 main actors, almost didn't reprise their roles for this movie, for Half-Blood Prince. Could you imagine getting 6 movies into a series and just being like, I think I'm done with this? Like, what? They were, and this is the kicker, they were worried about being typecast, which they absolutely are. Like, they can't really get a whole lot of other work in Hollywood after Harry Potter. But don't you think the 6th movie is way too late to worry about being typecast? Like, you're Harry Potter now. Like, you're typecast. Sorry. Like,
and you would get everyone very mad. Fans would be very angry over something like that. Plus, look at Radcliffe today. He said that he actually loved that he did Harry Potter because the money from it has made it so he can do whatever he wants now, like smaller movies that don't require as much.
I'm sure all of them never have to work another day in their life. Like, I'm positive. Like that, the royalties you would make is crazy. The cave scene was filmed at the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland and took 3 to 4 months to prepare for.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's wild. There was some other scenes like there was another scene that was really graphics heavy. It was the scene where Dumbledore is like whipping the fire around.
Yep.
And they said that took 6 months just to get set up for, like, for the graphics artists to make the fire. Like, it took 6 months just to like get to the point where they could actually like physically, or not physically, but make the fire in CGI.
Wow.
Wow.
I mean, this is like early 2000. I'm sure nowadays it'd be so easy, but back then,
probably.
yeah. When they filmed the first Slughorn scene, they had to ask all of the residents of the street to black out their windows with sunblind curtains. This is a scene where like Dumbledore takes Harry to go see Slughorn, and he's like in the armchair, and he pops out.
Mm-hmm.
They had to ask all the people on that street to like black out their windows. I couldn't imagine trying to get an entire street of people to cooperate with that. Like they'd be like, no, I'm doing whatever I want. Like, unless they were like offered like money, or I don't know.
Well, I'm sure, and at the time too, like that. I mean, filming there and the books being there were like very prideful for, you know, like
good point.
Around where, you know, I could see them being like, my street's in the movie, I'll do whatever you say, you know.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, then the last like thing that I have here is pretty interesting, and it really shows you a lot about kind of like the way these studios work, and like how they like they don't like anything that they do is to make them the most money. And it's always important to remember that with these kind of companies. It's like game studios, movie studios, like these aren't your friends. Like these are business people that are trying to do whatever they have to do to make money, and they don't really care who it damages.
It's only about the bottom line. That's it.
What's that?
Only about the bottom line. That's it.
Yeah, bottom line. That's it. So the film was completely finished, and it was meant to be released in November of 2008, but it was moved to July of 2009 because the studio needed a big summer blockbuster, and we need to counterbalance a loss of funds for 2009. And what they mean by that is that The Dark Knight had come out in 2008, and they didn't really have a whole lot lined up for 2009. And so when investors are looking at these companies, and they're saying, you know, how is my money being used? How much money are you making? They would, if Harry Potter would have been released in 2008 with Dark Knight and Harry Potter performing so well, they would have seen this huge spike in profits. And if you're just looking at the graph, you would have seen this big drop in 2009, and they'd be like, why are we losing money? And it's like, well, we're not. We just had a really good year last year. And so they released it in 2009 to not make the graph look like it had this big drop. And that really sucks because it messed everything up, like so many things. The film was set to premiere at multiple film festivals in November, and it was going to be like the headliner. People had bought their tickets to these film festivals, and were expecting to see the new Harry Potter movie. And it just like wasn't there. They had to like back out of it. And then there was like magazines and newspapers that had already written like articles and had like the Half-Blood Prince on the cover of like Life magazine or whatever. Like all of these things were like already like printed and ready to go. And so all of these like news outlets had to completely change how they covered the story. like at the last minute, like had to do like reprintings and stuff. And then there was like special like collectibles and memorabilia and all that kind of stuff that was already going out to stores. So you would have been able to buy like Half-Blood Prince merchandise well before the movie ever came out because it's like getting sent out to stores.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just funny to see how a decision like that can completely mess everything up. It's really wild. It's
Yeah.
really wild. Yeah, and then we talked about how much the film made worldwide. The film cost $250 million to make. Within the first 5 days, it made almost $400 million, breaking Spider-Man 3's record of, I think Spider-Man 3's was like $380 million. And then yeah, like Gabe said, has made almost $1 billion. So that's crazy. We don't see that anymore. We don't see
No,
that anymore.
not even close to that.
Yeah.
Very rare.
So we'll go through Dumbledore's big plan. I only have a couple bullet points. The main part of Dumbledore's big plan for this book is to get Harry ready to do things on his own and to show him Riddle's history with the Horcruxes. These things go hand in hand because he needs Harry to understand what the Horcruxes are, what kind of Horcruxes Tom Riddle would have used, because in the next book, Harry is going to be on his own, and it is this growing up moment for Harry where like he doesn't have anybody to watch his back now. He's got Ron and Hermione, but he doesn't have a failsafe. He doesn't have a Dumbledore coming to the rescue or a Sirius coming to the rescue. So Dumbledore's whole plan for this book is to get Harry ready to do things on his own. And then also his second part of that is he needs to control when Harry gets certain information. Otherwise, he will not be able to sacrifice himself in the proper way in the end of Deathly Hallows. If Harry Potter knows that he can live, then the sacrifice will not work. And so this is more of Dumbledore just kind of like, there's certain scenes in this book where Harry's like, why do you trust Snape? And Dumbledore's like, I trust him, implicitly. And Harry's like, but why? And there's this moment where Dumbledore is about to tell him, and then he doesn't, because if he did, then Harry would know that Snape is really on their side. Even given the betrayal at the end of this book, Snape is still on the side of like Dumbledore and Harry. But if Harry knows that, then the events of Deathly Hallows won't be able to play out the way that they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you say here? It's insane.
The amount of foresight Dumbledore has.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about Dumbledore's big plan is like when you're doing a reread, you really get to see all of these little things that Dumbledore is doing. So yeah, he has to hide that Snape was in love with Lily, guaranteeing him being on their side, and Harry can't know this. Otherwise, Voldemort would find out. So whatever Harry knows, Voldemort has a high percentage chance of figuring out. And so Harry can't know that, like, Harry has to believe the betrayal. So then he can't tell him about the Deathly Hallows because Harry has to learn about these in a specific way for the Master of the Elder Wand situation to play out how Dumbledore has foreseen. And you'll get more of this in the book, Sam. I don't know if the movies really covered how the whole like switching hands of like the Master of the Elder Wand worked.
No, they do, because it plays into the movies, especially when they think that Malfoy is the one who would be the new owner because you have to kill the last owner, but it's really Snape, which is why he then has to die. So yeah, they do mention that in the movies.
Okay, cool. I'm glad they did.
It's in the Deathly Hallows one, yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, like so Harry, it has to play out the way that it's supposed to play out in order for the Elder Wand to change hands how it's supposed to. And the Resurrection Stone has to be used at the close to bolster Harry's confidence going into the confrontation with Voldemort in the forest, because if Harry had had the resurrection stone earlier, he would have tried to resurrect Dumbledore, and Dumbledore needs him to do what he eventually does right before the confrontation with Voldemort. And so it's all, everything is like very, there's a reason for everything. And even as I was reading through the Deathly Hallows the past couple of days, I was like, why didn't Dumbledore just tell him about the Deathly Hallows? But all of this makes sense. It makes sense that Harry has to find out about these things on his own, and it has to play out in a very specific way in order for the prophecy to like actually come true and work and everything. Yeah, and then also, this kind of goes back to the previous point. Also, if Harry thinks that he can use the Deathly Hallows to survive death, then none of this will work. And like Harry has to believe that he is going in there and not going to survive. And then also, for the same reason, he doesn't tell him that Harry is a Horcrux. If Harry knows this, then he will know that he's meant to be a sacrifice. Harry has to do it of his own accord. He can't do it out of like, oh, this is all part of a plan. Like he has to do it out of a genuine desire to be this sacrifice. So that's kind of the big plan in this one.
I'd be winging it out there. Yeah.
I could have never been able to do all that planning if I was Dumbledore. I'd be winging it.
Yeah.
Well, and there's like so many small elements that you don't even think about. Like Harry can only do certain things at certain times because he could unintentionally pass that information along to Voldemort. So
right.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go into a deeper discussion of some of our favorite like scenes from the book and stuff like that. Sam, do you want to talk about the prologue? Because this wasn't in the movie. Did you like this prologue?
Yeah, it was really interesting because that's when you find out that Fudge is out and there's a new minister, and you only get a very brief scene with him. But I thought it was hilarious how the, Muggle prime minister, like in the beginning, it doesn't make sense to him, but he somewhat known about it beforehand because they have to. And then each time Fudge is coming, he remembers more and more and more until finally Fudge is like, oh, well, I'm out. The new one will be here at some point. And so, that was interesting, how it almost felt like, why did they even feel the need to tell like the Muggle prime minister? Because you're not really giving them any information that they can work with or use.
Yeah.
So...
I know there's nothing the prime minister can do necessarily, and all you're doing is causing him like a ton of stress.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of like a flex of power too.
Yeah.
The Muggle prime minister is just terrified of this guy that can just come through his chimney, like
right. Yeah.
And who the real authority and power is, and it's
not Mr. Muggle.
Yeah,
not at all.
It's also kind of weird because I wish that Rowling had done more with this. I wish there was more like crossover between the magical world and like the actual prime minister, because we never, as far as I remember, like maybe it comes up in Deathly Hallows at some point again, but I don't remember the prime minister of the Muggle world ever coming back into play. And so it would have been really cool if there had been like more crossover, and like the wizarding world needed the Muggle world for this thing, and that kind of led to this like crossing of the two worlds, and like maybe certain people found out about magic and stuff like that. I think that would have been a really cool storyline, but it like never comes up again. It's just kind of a funny prologue.
I think it was just to inform us that Fudge was out, honestly.
Right.
There's a new sheriff in town.
Yeah, that's super fair. That's super fair. Yeah, he it's funny watching the Minister for Magic like tell the Prime Minister about all these things, because the Prime Minister is like, he's like, what am I supposed to do about this? Like, what? And he just like, and he doesn't understand how it like affects his world at all. And he's like, okay, well, you guys are having all these problems. Like, how does that affect me? And this is where we learn about the bridge that we see in the movie collapse. But yeah, very funny scene. Kingsley Shacklebolt is the prime minister's right-hand man, which I thought was hilarious. Because when he finds out, he's like, I love Kingsley Shacklebolt. Like, he's been a great right-hand man, whatever his position is. And he's like, yeah, he's one of ours. And the prime minister is like, what? Like, no.
Yeah.
He's like, has he not been performing to your satisfaction? He's like, no, he's been fine. Like,
Well, because he at first says, like, we're going to replace your assistant with somebody who can do magic so that we have somebody keeping an eye on you. You're safe. And he's like, what? No, I don't want you to get rid of my new secretary. He's amazing. And then he's like,
yeah,
oh, well, good, because that's who it is. That
right.
was
That was great. It was a great little reveal. And then we get Snape's unbreakable vow, which was pretty interesting. Did you feel like you learned anything new about this in the book rather than the movie, or nah?
No, I feel like they you got what you needed out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the movie starts very differently. We
Yes,
start
it does.
we see the bridge getting destroyed, right? And then we get Harry's point of view. He's like in the
Like train station,
train
coffee
station.
shop, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and we see that chick too. The chick's like, I get off at 11. You wanna
right.
come by and pick me up.
By the way, if you were to do something like that, like if you were to be like, hey, what time do you get off or whatever, there is no way in hell that a lady would be like, getting off at 11? That is like way too late to go
Yeah.
hang out with some random stranger guy. Like, I get off at 11. Like, okay. Like, maybe if it was like 7, like, yeah, maybe we could grab like a bite or something. But
Yeah.
what are you going to do at 11 with some strange man? Like, what?
Yeah,
No.
weird.
I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
That's so late. It is a weird way to start the scene because I think the book does such a good job of starting it out. Like, we learn that Harry inherits number 12 Grimmauld Place and Creature, and then like we get this scene with Dumbledore yelling at the Dursleys, and this would have been fantastic in the
Yes.
movie. Like, this
Mhm.
would have been so good. And he's telling them, my note says, Dumbledore scolds the Dursleys, saying that they have never treated Harry with an ounce of respect or care and were often outright cruel to him. They've done him a larger disservice than they had to Dudley, and they were confused by what this meant. Have you guys thought about this all? Like, what disservice have they done to Dudley?
Because they coddled him and then
Yeah, they ruined him.
it turned out.
Yeah.
They ruined him. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
that's definitely his point, is like, you were cruel to Harry and you treated him horribly, but he has grown into the most heroic, like, wonderful person,
Mhm.
and who you're really doing a disservice to is your son Dudley,
Yep.
who is essentially inept. Like, he cannot do
Yeah.
anything for himself. And they're just like so confused. They're like, what do you mean? Like, we've given him everything in life. It's like, yeah, that's kind of the point.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Well, and I
Yeah.
thought it was really funny where Dumbledore like floats the drinks over to them, and now
Oh,
they're
yes.
take
They're
it, and
just
so
like
they
hitting him in the
flash
head.
the head more violently as it goes. I thought that was great.
It was a nice touch. It was a nice touch. And then at the very beginning of Deathly Hallows, we get a fantastic scene with Dudley that might make you tear up a little bit. We'll see. But yeah, I was reading that scene recently, like a couple days ago, and I was just like, man, it's such a good scene. Okay, so then Dumbledore has this great quote that I think, like, legitimately, I might get this tattooed at some point. He says, and now, Harry, let us step into the night and pursue that flighty temptress, adventure. I'm like, that's such a great, I would love to have that as like a quote, like behind my bookshelf or something. Like, that's
Would be
such
cool.
a perfect quote for like just the idea of like reading and escapism, and
Yep.
let us let us step into the night and pursue that flighty temptress adventure. I'm like, that's such a great, just a great quote. I love it. It's so good. And then we get the shed scene, and this is fantastic. Do either of you guys remember this scene? Yeah, they're coming back from Slughorn's thing where they convince Slughorn to like come back to the school and all that.
Oh,
And they show up at the burrow, and
okay.
Dumbledore takes them into the shed. Do you guys remember this?
Now I do. I was wondering where the shed was, but at the burrow, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
Oh, because the spiders. Now I'm remembering.
Yep.
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would love like an art piece of like maybe like in a portrait style, and it's like I could see like Dumbledore and Harry like kind of crammed into this shed with like a little bit of light on a wand between them and like a spider just hanging down from
Mhm.
his hat. I would love to get somebody to like make that that artwork for me, because I think that'd be so cool. I love this scene. Because after after Harry and Dumbledore are kind of estranged for the last book, like Dumbledore isn't telling him anything. He's
Mhm.
not like able to confide in Harry because Harry hasn't mastered his occlumency. Um, and so we get like this first like really real scene between the two of them since the last book. They had one at the end of the last book, but still. Dumbledore says, I hope you will forgive me for mentioning it, Harry, but I am pleased and a little proud of how well you seem to be coping after everything that happened at the Ministry. Permit me to say that I believe Sirius would have been proud of you as well. And it's such an emotional moment. It's like the first time that Dumbledore has really like recognized this loss of Harry. And they're just like, I love that they're like inside this shed and he's just having like, it's such a weird place to have this talk, and I just love it's like so heartfelt. I don't know. I just love this scene so much. Um and Dumbledore says he says, it was cruel that you and Sirius had such a short time together. And Harry says, it's just hard to realize that he'll never write to me again.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, this is heartbreaking. Like, ah, so good. Um, Nova says, crazy thing is, would Harry be a hero if they treated him like Dudley? That's a good question.
Mhm.
If the Dursleys had coddled Harry and done the same to him, would he have turned out the way he is?
I think that a huge part of his growth early on is just because of his situation at home,
Mm-hmm.
like he was forced, never wanted to be home, forced to be at the school, well, wanted to be at the school,
Mm-hmm.
hated his summers, stuff like that. I don't know, I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think, Sam?
I mean, he definitely wouldn't be the exact same person, but I don't know. I think I go back and forth with nature versus nurture on a lot of things.
Sure.
And I like to think that everyone kind of at their core is pretty either like good or bad,
Yeah.
and you can be swayed either way. So, I mean, he definitely wouldn't be the same person. That's not to say I don't think he could have still been Harry Potter in the
Yeah.
end, be Harry Potter. So, yeah, that's a good, like, going back and forth my brain on,
Yeah.
what I'm thinking. I'm really not sure.
Well, I think for me the thing that made me love the series so much right off the bat is seeing this character who has been so incredibly abused and mistreated and gets to kind of escape to this other place where he has all these things that he's never had before. He's never had friends. He's never had people that had his best interest in mind. Um, and then he gets there, and you see that this poor kid who has been so abused still has like so much love to give,
Mhm.
and you're just like, man, this person that has been like stripped of everything in life is still trying to give to others. One of my favorite scenes in that first book is Harry. He's on the train with Ron, and they come through with the cart with all the like cookies and candies and stuff.
Mhm.
And Ron's stomach like gurgles, and he's like, "Oh, you know, we're kind of poor. Like, we don't have any money for that kind of stuff." And Harry's like, "Hang on a second," and like runs to the cart and gets like all this food and brings it back for him and Ron, this person that he's just met.
Mhm.
Um, and like Harry, like you would think that like the situation that he grew up in would cause him to be really like cynical and like, if I get something, it's gonna be mine.
Yeah.
But he still goes in. He sees this other kid who is like befriending him. He's never had a friend before, and he like sees that this other kid can't afford this, and so he's like, I have money, I'm just gonna get us like a bunch of food and you can have as much as you want. And Harry even says in, I believe it's Goblet of Fire, that if the Weasleys would have ever permitted it, he would have given them half his fortune.
Mhm.
And so it's moments like that where it's like Harry's upbringing is such a like a beautiful contrast to who he is as a character. Um, and I think that perhaps if he was coddled growing up, he might have turned out a lot more like James or Sirius, where he's got like kind of an ego about him. And we talked in when we were talking about the second book how Dumbledore was specifically, he brought Lockhart in to check Harry's ego and to show Harry what he would be like if he were to have a big head on his
Mhm.
shoulders as he's getting more and more famous. Um, and I think that Dumbledore would have had to craft Harry in a different way. Um, if Harry hadn't come into Hogwarts just like super humble, super like not expecting anybody to cut him a break, like I think it really plays in, but it's certainly an interesting conversation. And then the question is too, if Dudley had gotten his Hogwarts letter, if he were magically inclined, would the Dursleys still have been super anti-magic?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I go back and forth because like their
Right?
little Dudleykins can do no wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, their entire world revolves around Dudley, you know? It's like the
yeah.
center of their gravity.
And it wouldn't have been new news to Petunia because she'd already known about her
Yep.
sister.
Right.
So yeah, I could see them having been okay with it just because what would the alternative have been? And they
Yeah.
were obsessed with that child.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. So in the movie, we missed an opportunity for the shed scene, but we do get a great hangout scene with the trio and Ginny greeting Harry. What did we think of specifically the romance, or specifically the movie romance between Ginny and Harry in this one?
I loved it.
Me
I
too.
was all for it. Every second of it.
I think I've heard a lot of people kind of cringe when she does like the cookie thing, or when she like goes to like tie his shoe. People are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's so like embarrassing and gross." I'm like, I think it's cute. I'm like,
Yeah, I do. I did too.
I love the shoelace scene where she like steps up to him and she's like, "Merry Christmas, Harry," and she like goes down and like ties his shoe, and then they like almost have a kiss, but like somebody comes downstairs or
Yep.
something. Um, I don't know. What did you think, Sam?
I mean, I never had an issue with their romance at all in any way, but I also wasn't like, yes, Team Harry and Ginny. You know what I
Right,
mean? It was
sure.
kind of a like I could take it or leave it type of thing.
Yeah,
I've never been drawn into it and like obsessed with it in any way. I was
sure.
just like, okay, sure.
Yeah. I like it. I like it more how they do it in the book, but I think both have their merits. Like I love one of my favorite scenes in this book is when Harry's got detention and he thinks they're going to lose the Quidditch game without him. And they pull through and win the entire cup. And he comes upstairs and Ginny just lets everything go. And they're all like celebrating. He comes in the door and she just like runs at him and kisses him. And then they like pull away and he looks over her shoulder and sees Ron and he kind of goes, yeah, I guess. And I just think I love that scene. And then I love the scene after where she's like sitting on his lap or whatever out in the courtyard or whatever. And she's like, Grimilda Vane kept asking me like what, there was some harpy or something tattooed on your chest. And he's like, what did you tell her? She's like, I told her it was like some kind of dragon. She's like, much more macho. And he's like, thanks. And then she's like, I told her that Ron had a heart or a pygmy puff.
Yeah.
Yeah, pygmy puff tattooed on himself, but I didn't tell her where. And it's just like a very real, like, teenage hangout moment. I loved it. Like, yeah, like I told her she was spreading this rumor that you had this embarrassing tattoo, so I told her it was a dragon. It's much more macho. Like, yeah. I love those moments so much.
Yeah, I think I realized what it was with Harry and Ginny that just never, couldn't have cared either way. Is that because we watched them all as children, like grow up together, barely anyone marries their like childhood crush. And this movie had too many of that.
Yeah, it certainly did. I mean? Yeah.
So it was just like, okay, cool, you're together.
It certainly did. I do love the idea of Ginny's arc though, being like she was like in love with Harry from the first time she ever saw him, like as a kid, and then like Hermione has to tell her like, hey, you got to back off of Harry. Like he's not going to be into you if you're like dogging his heels all the time or like acting like awkward around him. So maybe just go date some other boys and like get some experience. And so she does that. She goes and dates Cormac or whatever. She dates Dean and like a couple other boys. And then she like comes back around to Harry and it ends up being like a really good romance. And I love what she tells him at the end of the book. She's like, I never gave up on you. I was just like, oh, that's so, I love that stuff. I love that stuff. I also really liked the scene where, so the movie does it differently. The kiss scene. Instead, they go into the room of requirement. And she's like, you need to hide this book and you need to never be able to find it again. And so he goes in with her and she's like, close your eyes. I'm going to hide it so you're not tempted. And then she goes and hides it. And the camera is just like panned on Harry's face. And then she comes up and while his eyes are closed and she kisses him. And she says, that can stay hidden up here too, if you like, and moves away. And then he opens his eyes and she's gone. I'm like, that is a great scene. I like that probably just as much as the big like whirlwind celebration scene. Like I thought both were really, really good. We get the twins' joke shop. They're selling all sorts of cool stuff, including clothing with protective like shield enchantments and stuff. And in the movie, Ron asks his brothers, he's like, how much is this? And they say 5 galleons. And he says, well, how much for me? And they say 5 galleons. But I'm your brother. You're right. 10 galleons.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Harry suspects Draco is a Death Eater because he sees him going into Borgin and Burke's. And I thought it was funny how everybody else is like, Draco couldn't be a Death Eater. He's not even of age. Like, Voldemort wouldn't do that. As if Voldemort cares what age you are. Yeah. I was like, what? Like, that was like blowing my mind how quickly people were to like, just like brush that aside. Like, Draco wouldn't be a Death Eater. why not? Like, why wouldn't he be a Death Eater is the question. Like, I don't know. I thought that was so funny. Snape teaches everybody nonverbal spells, which comes up a lot in Deathly Hallows and even in this book. And then Harry has a great line where Harry says, like, yes, Snape, or something. And Snape says, yes, sir. And Harry says, there's no need to call me sir, Professor. It's a great line.
Yep. And then it like pans back, like all of Ron and whoever else were laughing, cackling.
Yeah. So we get potions class in the Half-Blood Prince's book. Harry wins Felix Felicis. And then after showing the book to Hermione and Ron, Hermione, this is interesting. Hermione gets very upset and instead uses the official instructions. And this is such an interesting character moment for her because Hermione has to do things the official way or like by the book, even if it's objectively worse. Like Harry tells her, he's like, crush it with the side of your knife rather than cutting it. It like makes the juices come out better. And she's like, that's not how the book says to do it. It's like, okay, you can do it the worst way. But it tells you a lot about Hermione that she's like, I have to do it how it says to do it.
Very OCD by the book.
Yeah. Really interesting. Sam, do you want to talk about the first vision we get with, or the pensive thing we get with the Gaunts, where we see like Marape, Morphin, and Marvolo?
Yeah. I was very not confused, but like sort of confused when I got to that part of the audiobook, just because like when I text you guys, I was like, this is not even brought up at all in any way. And it's such an interesting scene where you learn about Voldemort's mother and the family on her side and how they're essentially, it's not a swear, I don't know if I could say this, they like interbreed together, like to keep the bloodline pure, but then they're in this like disgusting dirty shack, and they all have eyes that all look in different directions at all times, and the brother, well, Voldemort's uncle, is like murders snakes and puts them on the door, and they're not even supposed to speak to muggles, and it was just fascinating. And you find out how the daughter, Voldemort's mother, runs off with a human man that she definitely uses a love potion on so that he'll want to be with her. And then she decides to stop using it. So he obviously leaves her. And that's how he ends up becoming, Voldemort becomes an orphan because the birth was really, really hard on the mother. And she had basically given up any will to live. So she dies. And phenomenal, not only background, but just like storyline. And I could not comprehend why it was left out of the movies.
It's such a good storyline, and we even get Voldemort goes back to Morphin later. And he's like, or is it Morphin or?
Yeah, I think the dad was Morphin, right? Or was he Marvolo?
He was Marvolo. Okay, yeah. So he goes to Morphin, who he thinks is Marvolo, and Morphin's like, no, Marvolo died like years ago. And he's like, he's trying to find his dad, right? And so he shows up, he finds out where the original Tom Riddle went, and he kills Morphin, makes it look like, I forget, either an accident or suicide or something. And then he goes to where his dad's Muggle family lives and kills all of them. And nobody could figure out how they died. And so it's like an interesting, I don't know, it tells you so much more about Tom Riddle and about who he becomes as Voldemort.
It's the most backstory you get on Voldemort, and they just completely cut it from the movies.
And it's also kind of interesting to find out that like a love potion it does not like change someone's feelings over time. Like as soon as like she thought like, oh, he's had so much time with the love potion, like he really does love me now. But then as soon as it was done, he's like, what is going on? I'm out of
Mhm.
here. And so it kind of tells us a lot about love potions too.
Yeah.
So we get the scene later on with Katie Bell, and she opens up this cursed envelope, lifting her
Oh
high into
yeah.
the air. And the trio, in the book, the trio was able to catch her before she falls. In the movie, she just like splats on the ground.
Yeah, the movie was the whole scene was crazy,
It
dude.
was so good.
It's like, yeah, like it's like you know, you could tell there was like this demon that's just like throwing her around. You can
throwing
like
her
it's
around and
making noises and growling and stuff. I was like, holy crap.
yeah, it was really good. I like how they did it in the movie. Yeah, so she's got this cursed necklace from Nocturne Alley. Well, I mean, I think we know it's from Nocturne Alley, but she
Yeah,
gets it
she
in the
got it
Three
in the yeah.
Broomsticks.
Mhm.
And then we find out later that it's because Madame Rosmerta is what's the curse?
Not Imperio.
Imperio. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imperious. Yep. Uh, and so, and she gets told to deliver it to Dumbledore. Later, we'll see that Ron gets poisoned by a drink that was also meant for Dumbledore. So somebody is like trying to get these things to Dumbledore without like doing it himself.
Mhm.
So, and then in the movie, uh, I love this moment. Like we've talked about some of the comedy in this movie, and like Katie Bell is like taken away, and McGonagall's there, and then the trio shows up: Ron, Hermione, and Harry, and she says, "Why is it when something happens, it is always you three?"
Yeah.
And Rupert Grint's like delivery on this line was so good. He says, "Good evening, Professor. I've been asking myself the same question for 6 years." It's just like,
Great.
it's such
That is
good, like,
Yep.
comedic timing. I love it. Um, and then we see Dumbledore's first meeting with Tom Riddle, which of course we see in the movie as well. Um, you know, even at this age, Tom Riddle is like keeping like trophies essentially.
Hmm.
And this is kind of where we learn about how he like will steal from people and he'll like keep it to like look at it almost like a psychopath, like a
trophy.
Dexter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so this will explain later, like later on, somebody will ask, like, how are we supposed to find these Horcruxes? They could be a shoe, or they could be like a piece of paper or something. Like, how do we find these? They could be anything. And the thing is that Tom Riddle is obsessed with these various trophies that have some significance to him, like
Mhm.
you know, Rowena Ravenclaw's pin or whatever it is, or her necklace or whatever. And so the items have to be of significance, which is a great way for J.K. Rowling to avoid the, well, they could be anything kind of
Yeah.
thing, and
Mhm.
avoid a lot of like plot convenience, because there's
Mhm.
actual lore and a reason why he collects these things.
Mhm.
Harry, quote unquote, gives Ron the Felix Felicis. This was great in the
Oh
book
yeah,
and in the movie.
that was cool.
It was fantastic.
Yep.
I love that, you know, Ron has like a great game. He's in the zone, and there's this announcer that is just like saying all this bad stuff about like Gryffindor and like making all of these like quips. Like he was almost like the opposite of like Luna Lovegood.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he's just like getting super annoying. And at the end of the match, Ginny flies full force into the announcer booth and like collapse the whole thing. I thought that was so funny. She's like, "Sorry, McGonagall, I couldn't break," or whatever. So good. And then we get a fantastic scene where everybody's celebrating afterwards. Ron or Lavender goes up to Ron and kisses him, and Hermione sees it, and it was done perfectly in the movie. I think this scene was absolutely perfect in the movie. Um, and she sees it and like walks back out of the portrait hole, and she like goes into the hallway, and Harry goes out there with her and is like holding her hand. And I love the idea. We see it in this movie and especially in Deathly Hallows, and we see it in the books as well. Harry like hanging out with Hermione, and he's got like his arm around her, or he's like holding her hand or whatever, but it's not romantic. It's in a friend, comforting friend kind of way. And
Yeah.
I'm like, we need more of this in literature and movies and stuff. Like, it doesn't always have to be like this romantic tension. Like, I love that. Like, even at the end of this movie, when they're sitting in, or when they're standing in the astronomy tower, and, you know, Hermione tells Harry, like, we're gonna go with you, he like grabs her hand and they like hold hands. I'm like, we need more of this, like more stuff like that, I feel like. Um but so they're sitting out in the hallway. Harry's like comforting Hermione, and she's got these birds that are floating above her head. And Harry doesn't really comment on them really, or maybe he says like nice spell or something. And then Ron comes out with Lavender, and they're like going to find like a secluded corridor or something. And she's like, "Oh, we should go, Ron. Like, looks like this area is taken." And before this happens, Hermione asks, like, how does it feel seeing Ginny with Dean all the time, like holding hands and like all this stuff? And then Lavender bursts into the scene with Ron, and they go to run away, but Hermione like sends the birds after Ron, and they like start attacking Ron, which I thought was great. And then as soon as they leave, Harry is like essentially holding Hermione, and he says, "It feels like this."
Yeah.
I'm like, that was a great freaking line. Like
Yeah.
that, like just the whole scene, the way that it's like written and the way that everything like plays out in order. I was like that, like you feel that, like you really, really feel that.
Mhm.
Um, so that, yeah, that was fantastic. There's another quote, from later on. Hermione is gonna take Cormac, uh, not McCarthy, Cormac McLagan, to the Slug Club party, and Harry's gonna take Luna. Hermione announces that she's gonna take Cormac, and the book says, because Ron and Luna, or Ron and Lavender are like nearby, like next to them, and it says there was the noise of a plunger being pulled from a blocked sink, and Ron surfaced.
Jeez,
Jesus Christ.
that's gnarly.
Oh. And then the scene in the movie that was supposed to be this scene, was Harry and Hermione in the library, and she says, like, see over there, that's Grimilda Vane. She's trying to smuggle you a love potion.
Yep.
And Harry says, really? And he's like all excited. And she says, hey, she's only interested in you because she thinks you're the chosen one.
Yep.
And he says, but I am
I
the
am the
chosen
chosen
one.
one.
I'm like, dude, it's so funny. It's so good. Um, all right, so let's scroll down here a bit. You know, Percy came home for Christmas. That's when we get I'm Dumbledore's man, and that's a great moment. But we need to start talking about the ending. Sam, what did you think about like the cave scene? Like, do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I found it really interesting, and I thought the book and the movie were basically the exact same thing. The
Uh-huh.
movie was absolutely true to the source,
Hmm.
and it was interesting how you really would need two people to be able to get it out, and you can't touch the. If you try like you're gonna take it, the dead bodies will start rising out of the water, and they have to go over to the what would you call it? It's like I always think of it as like a bird bath.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's like a
yeah.
little thing.
Yeah, like what the necklace is in, and they
Yeah,
realize they can't get it out without drinking it. And so, what it is really a potion that'll make you really thirsty. And so you're going to want to touch the water, which then activates the dead coming out.
right.
I think the biggest surprise, which I hadn't remembered for some reason, is that it's not the actual Horcrux. It's like somebody else had already stolen it.
Yeah.
and like there was a note left behind in it.
RAB.
Yeah, I had not remembered that at all. I'd
Who
completely forgotten.
who do we know with those initials? Can you guys think of anyone with the last name starting with B?
I can't think of it, and I didn't look it up.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll let
I
you.
don't remember.
I'll let you get surprised.
Yeah.
Okay. There is someone we know with the last name of
Well,
B. I'll just say
well,
that.
yeah. There's like Sirius Black,
Hmm.
and whatnot, and I'll remember it once I like see it or get to it, but I didn't remember at the time, and I was like, I'm not gonna ruin it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll let you find out. Something I forgot to mention is that we
Oh,
get
I
a.
remember who it is now.
You do?
Or isn't it his brother? It's like
Hmm.
Sirius's brother, right?
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Regulus.
Took me a
Regulus
second. I was
Black.
like, I know it's gonna
Yep.
come to me somewhere.
Yep. Yep. Um, we before the I think it's before the cave scene. Yeah, we get a great scene with Harry and Draco, and he does Sectum Sempra in the
Oh,
bathroom.
yes.
Yeah,
Rips him apart.
that was fantastic, and you see the wheels turning in Snape's head when he finally comes in,
Yep.
and he's like, "Oh my God, he just used Sectum Sempra. Like nobody else knows that spell."
Yeah.
Um, and so like he doesn't like tell on Harry. He gives him detention, but he doesn't like tell on him. Um, and he like repairs Draco. What did you guys think of Draco during this book? Did you feel bad for him?
Yeah, I did. More towards the end, because like the first, 3/4 is just him being Draco, him being
Right.
a jerk. But then, yeah, that scene at the end, you really kind of see the fear that he's been building up, and
Hmm.
it seems like he doesn't want to do what he's supposed to do.
Right.
So at that point, I did feel bad for him because he was kind of forced into a really cruddy position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this would have been a great moment for Draco to have his redemption. Like Draco is the character that like I really wish had like a redemption arc.
Yeah.
Because we do see him redeemed in some ways in Deathly Hallows. Um, but I'm like, this could have really been it. Like, this could have been the moment where, like, Draco is up on the tower with Dumbledore, and, like, Dumbledore wins him over, and Draco decides, I'm going to put down my wand and like I'm going to let you protect me like you say you can. And then Snape comes around the corner, and because of the unbreakable vow and because of the other Death Eaters that are around him, he still has to kill Dumbledore.
Yep.
But Draco has now decided to switch sides. And like maybe that's a little bit of what's happening in this book, but I think it could have been like a much bigger redemption arc. Or in the bathroom there, Harry and Draco could have had a moment where Harry sees the pressure that Draco is under, and maybe Harry gets him onto his side, and he's like, we can protect you, like we can keep you safe, like just come with me, like just be part of our team. Like that would have been great. I think my one well, maybe not one, but one of my complaints with the series is that Draco didn't really get a great redemption arc.
Yeah, see, I get a little confused because I haven't finished yet, but I had been reading those fanfic ones.
Right, yeah.
I, my point is not to say that, any of this is fact or anything like that, but it was able to humanize Draco in my mind because it gave a plausible backstory of how he ended up where he did and in the situation and
Yeah,
what could have been going on behind the scenes that we have never ever been told about.
Yeah.
And the pressure from his father and
yeah,
even Voldemort and how terrifying Voldemort is. And so it did in a way change how I viewed him, where I always felt a little bad. I always felt like, that's got to
yeah,
be a really like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place with your dad always having been a Death Eater in the first Voldemort tried to take everyone down. So it kind of humanized him for me in the sense of like, oh, this is just a lost kid who
Yeah.
was kind of in a lose-lose situation and was trying to make the best out of it. And regardless, I think Draco loved his parents and this is what they wanted him to do.
Right.
And so I felt bad. I tried to put myself in his shoes of like, what would I have done? How would I have handled this?
Right.
I think I would have run away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just went and lived off the grid somewhere and just said, you know what, let everybody else deal with this. Especially because if Draco had been the one to kill Dumbledore, Voldemort was setting him up to be killed himself because he
Yeah.
needed the wand. He
Yeah.
needed the Elder Wand. So
Right. Right.
even when he was winning for his side, he was going to lose in the end. So I feel bad. He was being set up.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you guys know what Dumbledore was seeing when he took the potion in the cave?
No, and I was really curious about that. Is it like actually like explicitly said somewhere?
Yeah, I think it's more inferred. But you do find out a lot about Dumbledore's past, and from that you can kind of assume what he was seeing. Because Deathly Hallows does talk about Dumbledore's like biggest regret, and so it's kind of assumed that what you see in Deathly Hallows is what he was seeing in the cave.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I kind of thought it more would have to do not really with like Grindelwald. And didn't
Yeah.
he breaks that unbreakable vow of his and somehow manages to live, and for whatever reason that's where my mind went.
It's not that, but it does have to do with Grindelwald for sure.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a great quote here. They get back into to Hogsmeade, and Harry says, or no, they're outside the cave, and Harry says, "I can apparate us back, don't worry." And Dumbledore says, "I am not worried, Harry. I am with you." It's just a
Or
great
what
moment.
about when Ron fails his apparating test because he left one eyebrow behind?
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
Oh, I thought that was hilarious.
I liked Draco on the tower with Dumbledore, and Dumbledore is just talking to him very calmly, like very like, "Oh, good job, Draco," like teaching like
Yep.
making him feel like he did something, worthy, like such a clever student. And
Mhm.
Draco says, "It'll be me, not Snape, who is the Dark Lord's favorite now." And Dumbledore says, "Very gratifying, Draco. We all like appreciation for our own hard work."
Yeah.
It's like so good.
Wait, so I have to go soon, but I
Okay.
do want to talk about something really big before I go.
Okay, do it. Yeah.
When Harry finally gets Slughorn's memory for him
Yeah.
to go to Dumbledore, and that's when it's confirmed for Dumbledore, but Harry finds out about Horcruxes and how that plays into everything. And I don't know if it's because we know what we know, having like seen the movies, you've read them. I feel like it was smacking us over the head with, "Hey, Harry, you are a Horcrux." Just like it felt
Yeah.
so obvious, but I was like, I can't say I would have absolutely gotten it without
Same.
already knowing.
Yeah. Doing this reread, I don't think there is anything that would have, if I hadn't already known, because even before reading the books, I knew that Harry was one of the Horcruxes for
Mhm.
whatever reason. I knew that much, and I don't know that I would have figured it out. But there are a couple things. There's like, it's mentioned multiple times. Like there's a piece of Voldemort in you,
Mhm.
throughout the books. Like even in Chamber of Secrets. And the following books, it's like the reason you're able to talk to snakes is because there's a piece of Voldemort inside you. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, that's the Horcrux. So
And that to
yeah,
destroy Voldemort, you have to destroy all of them, and then Voldemort's the last one.
Right.
So it was just like the room of requirement with that's where Malfoy was the whole time. To me, that was so obvious. I like wanted to scream, like
Yeah.
he's disappearing off the map. He's in the room of requirement,
Yeah.
and this just only because I feel like I knew what I knew was screaming like, "You are one, Harry. How are
Right.
you not figuring this out right now?"
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Ugh.
Any other big moments before you go, Sam? Like did you like the funeral scene or any of like the final goodbyes at the end of the book or anything?
I mean, honestly, it felt a little rushed at the end to me. It
Huh.
seemed really quick, but that could have been at the speed I was listening to it at.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know. I kind of wanted to know because I know Harry said like I have to go home to the Dursleys at least for a little while, but then he's like, I'm done. Like I'm not gonna be back next year. There's too much that has to be
Yeah.
done. I have to find these, I have to destroy them. And I'm really interested to see just how it plays out in the next book because based off of the 2 movies, I feel like there's so much to cram into it. So I'll
Yeah.
be interested to see, like, how the pace plays out, what the major differences are, because at least with this one, I don't think many things were changed in the movie that really made that big of a difference. So I like
Right.
that they're kind of very true to each other.
Yeah.
So I'll just be interested to see, with something that's 2 movies, is that great because they're going to get to all of those details without having to change anything?
Yeah.
Or did they like stretch things out? So I'm really interested to see how the book plays out just in comparison to the movie.
Yeah, I think there is like even in so I like I said I'm only halfway through Deathly Hallows and I'm like there is a mountain of details and context that there's no way that this stuff made it into the movie. So, yeah, I think when you read Deathly Hallows, man, it's going to be an experience. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you to read it. Do you
Yeah, because
guys Oh,
the
sorry,
one
go ahead.
got me so angry though. Remember, what was the one before? Not before Half Blood Prince. I think it was two before, where you find out about Lupin and
Yeah.
Sirius and the real story, and that just gets me so mad every time I think about that because the
Uh-huh.
movie did such a terrible job of conveying anything, and it wasn't until I read the book and then watched the movie that suddenly everything made sense when it came down to Sirius and Lupin.
Yeah.
And I just really hope it's not another one of those situations where it's like, if you hadn't read the books, you would have absolutely no idea what was going on right now.
Oh, I think it's absolutely going to be one of those situations, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that like I think you'll read the book and be like, "Oh my God, I have so much more information now. Like I have so
Yeah,
much more understanding of like how all of this came to be."
but that's how I felt last time. But then I was also angry, like
Yeah. Yeah.
that it took this for me to even be able to feel like I was semi understanding what was going on.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, I think you're gonna love it. I'm so excited to get your thoughts on Deathly
Okay.
Hallows. Do you guys want to record that like super soon? Like are you guys like I want to go right on to Deathly Hallows or do you want to
Yeah,
give it like
I'd
a little
I'd
bit of
like
time?
to. I'd like
me
Okay.
to.
too. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
Especially since we're splitting it in two. So
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Okay, so Sam had to go to her Super Bowl party. She's getting all sorts of food and stuff ready, so she had to dip out a little bit. But we're going to be going over the final bits of the Half-Blood Prince here. Draco talks about the cabinet that he's been working on, and this is kind of the thing that we've been trying to figure out the whole book, right? Is
Yeah.
like what is Draco working on? And I think the thing that was really cool was in the movie, we actually get Draco's perspective and we see him like working on the cabinet and he tries like putting the apple in the
Apple.
cabinet
Yep.
and then it comes back and then he tries sending like a live thing in, he sends the bird in, but the bird comes back dead. And so it was kind of interesting watching him like work on figuring this out and then eventually somehow what's her name? Trelawney gets into the same instance of the room of requirement that Draco does because she's trying to hide her wine bottles or whatever.
Yep.
And she like sees somebody in there and he's like, Draco had just like figured it out. And he's like, yes, yes. And then she like comes around the corner and he hits her with like some sort of spell that throws her back out the door of the room of requirement. And so that was kind of like the last bit of him that we see before everything really goes down.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I thought it was a pretty good mystery. Like when I first was reading the book, I don't think I ever like figured it out or anything.
No, I don't even think I really did this time until, and I can't remember who it was that told him. Somebody, maybe it was Dumbledore, but Dumbledore told Harry, like, I think the thing that he was, working on in whatever that place is,
Room of
Diagon
Requirement.
Alley. Yeah,
Oh.
no, like
Nocturne Alley.
Nocturne Alley. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like, I think that was like a whatever the cabinet. What do they call it? The
Vanishing cabinet.
Vanishing cabinet. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then of course when we see all the Death Eaters come out, it was like, all right, yeah, that makes sense. That's what he was tasked with.
Right. Yeah, and it was kind of interesting. We get a scene in the movie where it doesn't play out this way in the book, but it was kind of interesting because the movie had to find a way to tell you the lore of the Vanishing Cabinet. Because in the book, it tells us, like, Mundungus Fletcher tried to use it, and he got, like, splinched or whatever, and then he got stuck inside the cabinet, and he had to, like, apparate out of it. And so there was all these other details that you get, but you have no way of getting that in the movie. And so it's not Ronald Weasley, Arthur Weasley, that like Harry's like, we see Arthur Weasley's like garage where he's got all of the like
all the
like
Muggle
engines
stuff.
and all the Muggle
microwaves
stuff.
and radios.
I thought that was super cool to see. But he sits down and he tells Harry, he's like, yeah, I sent someone to follow.
Oh, that's right, it was him. Yeah.
Sent someone to follow Draco, and we believe that he's working on a Vanishing Cabinet, which is like in the book you don't have that information like at all.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was kind of interesting to like be told that that's what was going on that early in the movie. Just different ways of telling the story. I don't think one is worse than the other, just different. I love when Dumbledore is on the tower with Draco, and even under all of this pressure, even under all of this, like, we're all about to like die, Draco says the word mudblood, and Dumbledore says, "Please do not use that offensive word in front of me." And Draco says, "Ha! You care about me saying mudblood in front of you before I'm about to kill you?" And Dumbledore says, "Yes, I do."
Yep.
It's like even like right before he's about to die, he's still standing up for Muggles and for like half-bloods and stuff. He's like, "You will not use that in front of me." Like I love
True
Dumbledore
to the end.
so
True
much.
to the end.
So true. So true. And then he notes that Draco has had plenty of time to kill him, but hasn't made a move. And then this is when we find out that Draco, he says that Voldemort will kill him if he doesn't succeed.
Yeah.
And Dumbledore says, see, this is where, I don't know, maybe this is kind of where we would have found out, like that scene with Arthur Weasley in the movie. I kind of wonder if these were like swapped a little bit, because Dumbledore says that he knew about Draco's, he knew that Draco was up to something. He knew that Draco was like, he knew that he had done the thing with the necklace. He knew that he had done the thing with the alcohol that was poisoned. And he says that he hasn't like gotten directly involved, because if Voldemort were to look through Draco's memories, then he would know that Dumbledore was onto him, and then Voldemort would have killed Draco. So Dumbledore's been keeping this like been playing this very carefully, and it's why when Harry, earlier on, he was like, Draco's up to something, I promise you. And Dumbledore's like, I'm handling it. And Harry's like, but you're letting him do this thing. He's like,
Yep.
I'm handling it. And Harry's like, how could you? And he doesn't realize that Dumbledore knows what's going on. He doesn't
Yeah.
need Harry to go play the Lone Ranger. Like, he needs Harry to get the memory from Slughorn, not do all this stuff with Draco. And so it's interesting to see, oh, this was his plan all along.
Yep.
I see it now. He knew, like, Dumbledore specifically wasn't getting involved except through Snape because he knew that Voldemort would kill Draco. He didn't want
Yep.
Draco to die. So kind of a cool full circle thing there. Then Severus shows up after all of these other Death Eaters have shown up and all this. And Snape comes around the corner. Draco isn't going to kill Dumbledore.
Yep.
And Dumbledore looks at Snape and he says, Severus, please.
Yep.
And if you're reading this for the first time, you would think
please
that...
don't kill me.
Right, yeah. But what he's actually doing
Says,
here...
Please do it. Like,
Yeah,
please follow through with your promise.
Right, follow through with your promise, because he knows 3 things. Snape has to go through with his unbreakable vow. Also, he needs Snape to maintain his cover.
Yep.
The most important thing in Dumbledore's entire plan is having a man on the inside.
Yep.
And so he needs Snape to appear as though he is on the Death Eater's side. That's like number 1 priority. And so he's saying, you have to do it. You have to do it. Also, to save Draco's soul. Like, he would rather have Severus do it than have Draco do it.
Yep.
But lastly, he needs Snape to be the master of the Elder Wand. Even if Snape doesn't walk away holding the Elder Wand, he needs Snape to be the person that is holding the power. That way, when Snape dies later, the power is able to be transferred to Harry.
Yep.
It's this one line, the Severus please, is so interesting because it works on so many levels. And I just think it's incredible. I love this piece of Half-Blood Prince.
Yep.
Okay. We see everyone fighting in the castle, like even Ginny and Ron are locked in battle with Death Eaters. That's pretty cool. And then Harry follows Snape, and he uses Sectum Sempra and Crucio, but Snape blocks them to no effect, and he says, "No, Potter, you dare use my own spells against me? It was I who invented them, I, the Half-Blood Prince, and you'd turn my inventions on me like your filthy father, would you? No!" Harry says, "Kill me then! Kill me like you killed him, you coward!" And Snape casts like a whip-like spell. It might have even been Sectum Sempra that throws Harry to the ground. And then Buckbeak comes out of nowhere and like starts attacking Snape, who runs outside of the gates. And once he's outside of the gates, he's able to disapparate.
Yep.
So yeah, great showdown. I'm like, I don't know. I can't remember what I thought when I first read it. I can't remember if I knew that Snape was like not really a bad guy, or if I was like, oh, he's definitely betrayed everybody.
Yeah, I know. I the first time reading it, just remember hating him so much.
Yeah.
Wishing he would just go away. But then at the end, I felt like a dummy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool when everything comes full circle.
Yep.
And you're just like, oh my god, like
crazy.
So then we get Hagrid and Harry walking up to Dumbledore's body. It is absolutely heartbreaking. I wrote down this quote that just kind of stuck with me. And it says, There was still no preparation for seeing him here, spread eagle, broken, the greatest wizard Harry had ever or would ever meet. Dumbledore's eyes were closed, but for the strange angle of his arms and legs, he might have been sleeping. Harry reached out, straightened the half-moon spectacles upon the crooked nose, and wiped a trickle of blood from the mouth with his own sleeve. There he gazed down at the wise old face and tried to absorb the enormous and incomprehensible truth that never again would Dumbledore speak to him. Never again could he help.
So sad,
Ah,
dude.
it's so brutal. Like the loss, like you feel the loss of Dumbledore. He's been such an amazing role model to Harry and kind of been like this pseudo father that he never
Yeah.
had. And it's just like this is the person that Harry always knew he could count on, even when, in the last book he was being ignored by Dumbledore. He knew there was some reason. He knew that Dumbledore wasn't doing it out of like spite or
Yeah.
anything. He's like he wasn't happy with it, but he knew there was something.
You're still
Um,
trusting him.
yeah, he still trusted Dumbledore. And so for Dumbledore to die, it's just like, oh my God, it's so brutal.
Devastating. I thought in the movie too, after that scene, I think it's when he's talking to McGonagall in Dumbledore's office, but they pan over to Dumbledore in his portrait.
Yes.
And so I can't remember if that comes into play in the next book, but I was like, so I wonder, like obviously he's still in the portrait, right? Still there.
Yeah.
Just like the previous people are still there. They can't do anything outside of the portraits, but they can still talk and they're still, coherent.
Yeah, so I think with that, the lore behind that is that Dumbledore won't wake up for a while because he's asleep in the portrait, and he won't be able to like help anytime soon.
Yeah.
But also when he does, he won't have any of the memories of any of this happening. Like his consciousness is put into it at the time of the painting.
Oh.
So if it was like painted a year ago, he wouldn't remember like anything of this like
happened.
Horcrux stuff.
Gotcha.
But he could still give his wisdom. He could still, he has like hundreds of years of wisdom.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So he can still help. He just doesn't know what's going on with the exact situation.
Gotcha.
And I think we see that in Deathly Hallows. I think when we see his portrait, he's kind of like, he's Dumbledore, but he's like a little clueless. Like he doesn't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I think we do see him pop up in his portrait, but I had to look that one up because I was like, why? I was like, why does Dumbledore's portrait not help them?
Yeah.
And people were saying it's because it's his mind at the time of the painting.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So then we get the hospital wing. Was there anything in this? Harry found the locket. It's a fake. It has a note signed R.A.B.
Yep.
We get the hospital wing. Yeah, Bill is attacked by Fenrir. It'll never heal completely. Lupin loses it when he hears that Dumbledore is dead. He has like a full like mental breakdown, which I noticed much more in the book. I was like, the book like describes like he falls onto the ground and starts crying and stuff. I was like, oh wow. And then the phoenix flies overhead and lets out like a mournful song.
Yeah, Fox. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. And then there's the whole Tonks and Lupin thing when Fleur is like, I'm good looking enough for the both of us. And then Tonks says like,
he's like, see?
Yeah, she's like, see, like she doesn't care. Like I don't care either. I've told you time and time again that I don't care. He's like, I love you and like all this stuff. And Lupin says, he's talking to someone else and he says, she deserves someone young and whole. And then it's Arthur that says, So Lupin says she deserves someone young and whole, and then Arthur says, but she wants you, and after all, Remus, young and whole men do not always remain so, and he kind of gestures to Bill.
Yep.
And Lupin says, this is not the moment to discuss it. Dumbledore is dead. And then Molly, I think it's Molly that says, Dumbledore would have been happier than anybody to think that there was a little bit more love in the world.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, like, oh, it's so good. Or maybe it's McGonagall that says it. And then
it was McGonagall.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
And then they go to McGonagall's office, previously Dumbledore's. Dumbledore now has a portrait where he's asleep. McGonagall asks Harry what him and Dumbledore were doing, but he cannot confide that information to her. And this gets even more interesting in the next book because Lupin shows up. And it's Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and they're hiding out at number 12 Grimmauld Place. And Lupin shows up. And he's like, I'm coming with you guys. I'm going to help you. And Harry's like, Dumbledore said, I cannot tell anybody, even Lupin.
Yeah.
He's like, I cannot tell anybody. And Lupin's like, but I can protect you. I can be with you. Like, I can help you so much. And Harry's like, I know, but we cannot tell you.
Yep.
And it's heartbreaking because it's like, imagine if Lupin had been with them, like in that last book. Like, he would have been able to help so much.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if he had been, like, traveling with them and, like, able to, like, oh, man, that would have been such a massive, massive help.
Yeah.
But not only can Harry not confide in him, but also he yells at Lupin because Tonks is pregnant.
Yeah.
And Lupin is like, he's all like, Lupin's like this emo guy all of a sudden, like super like angsty, like, they're like, they don't want me there, like, I'm a werewolf, like, what kind of life could I give this child?
Yeah.
And Harry's like, look, I never had a dad, and like, I really wish that I did, so like, go back to your kid.
Get over there.
Yeah, it's a fantastic scene. But anyway, so my point to all of that is that Harry is not telling anybody about the Horcruxes. So then they say they're going to keep the school open, which is a big mistake because it gets taken over by Snape and the Carrows and essentially Voldemort. Why anybody would send their kids back there the next year, I have no idea. Especially Molly Weasley. She sends Ginny back the next year.
Yeah, which is crazy.
It's like, why are you sending Ginny back? Okay, then the funeral for Dumbledore, everyone is there, dressed in their best attire. Tonks is holding hands with Lupin, kind of showing us that they're together now. The Ministry is there as well, who probably could care less that he was dead. Mer people show up, and they come up to the side of the lake, and they start singing. And it reminds Harry of these times where he would see Dumbledore like crouching down by the water and speaking with the mer people. And Harry's like, I wonder where he ever learned how to speak, the mer people language. And then Harry realizes that there was so much about Dumbledore that he had never known, never been able to ask, and never would be able to ask. This gets to be all the more in the next book when Harry finds out that not only Harry was born in Godric's Hollow, but so is Dumbledore. And he's like, I'll never, like, why did we never talk about this? Like, I'll never get the chance to like ask him about growing up in Godric's Hollow. So then Hagrid carries the body in. It's wrapped in purple velvet with golden stars. The centaurs stand at the edge of the trees to look in on the funeral, and they release arrows that fall short of the crowd as their kind of like tribute, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
And then all these things remind Harry of little moments throughout the series, and it's just like a beautiful passage. I didn't write them all down, but he goes through like, I remember when Dumbledore, like, I don't know if this was one of them, but like, I remember when Dumbledore like sat with me at the mirror, and I remember
Yep.
when he like helped me with this thing, and it was kind of like a good way to like look at the previous 6 books and like reminisce on just this beautiful, beautiful character.
Yep.
And then there's this great passage here in the book. Um, it was important, Dumbledore said, to fight and fight again, and keep fighting, for only then could evil be kept at bay, though never quite eradicated. And Harry saw very clearly as he sat there underneath the hot sun how people who cared about him had stood in front of him one by one, his mother, his father, his godfather, and finally Dumbledore, all determined to protect him, but now that was over. He could not let anybody else stand between him and Voldemort. He must abandon forever the illusion he ought to have lost at the age of 1, that the shelter of a parent's arms meant that nothing could hurt him. There was no walking from his nightmare, no comforting whisper in the dark that he was safe, really, that it was all in his imagination. The last and greatest of his protectors had died, and he was more alone than he had ever been before. And it's this moment that's just like heartbreaking, because it's
Yeah.
like, dude, like like I was saying before, like he is on his own now,
Yeah.
and Dumbledore was trying to prepare him for this moment where he would be on his own.
Could you imagine the survivor's guilt he probably
Oh
has
yeah.
too?
Can you imagine?
I don't think I could function,
Yeah.
you know?
Because in the book, so like in the movie, Snape like whispers to Harry, he's like, "Be quiet," and like he like goes upstairs. But in the book, Dumbledore like petrificus totalis him, like he makes him like stunned, and he's like
Yep.
underneath his coat, and he has to watch all of this unfold. And so I'm sure there's a ton of survivor's guilt, and then also paired with like, there comes a point. I don't know if you remember like the first time that you like moved out of your parents' house, and like I don't know if you ever had like this moment where you were like, there is no one to help me right now. Like there is no one. Like it for me, it was when I was living in Denver, and I had moved out of my mom's house. She had kind of helped me with rent in a couple places while I lived in Colorado. But then there came a point where like she wasn't helping me with rent anymore,
Yep.
and I was in Denver, and I was on my own in this big scary city.
Yep.
And there's kind of this moment where you're just like, this is it. Like this is me figuring it out on my own.
Yep.
There's no one to be a safety net. There's no one to be like a buffer anymore. And that's what Harry is experiencing right now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Dumbledore is encased in white flame, taking him into the tomb. We also learned that Eileen Prince was Snape's mother. This was Hermione earlier in the book was saying, like, what if the prince is a girl? And he's like, it wouldn't be a girl. And then he finds out, or Hermione tells him that Eileen Prince was Snape's mother, so that's where he got the name the Half-Blood Prince.
Mm.
And so that's pretty interesting. It was his book, but it's interesting that her last name was Prince.
Yeah.
And then Harry breaks up with Ginny. This part is really sad. Like I wish that Ginny had like accompanied him in the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah.
Because we really don't get too much more of their relationship. They do share a kiss at the beginning of Deathly Hallows, but that's about it. I don't know. I wish we had gotten more time with them.
Yeah.
He says, "We can't be together." She says, "It's for some stupid noble reason, isn't it?" And he's like, "It's been amazing, all stuff." He says, "Voldemort uses people that his enemies are close to. He's already used you as bait once, and that was just because you're my best friend's sister. Think how much danger you'll be in if we keep this up. He'll know, he'll find out, he'll try and get to me through you." "What if I don't care?" said Ginny fiercely. "I care," said Harry. "How do you think I'd feel if this was your funeral and it was my fault?" She looked away from him over the lake. "I never really gave up on you," she said. "Not really. I always hoped. Hermione told me to get on with life, maybe go out with some other people, relax a bit around you because I never used to be able to talk to you if you were in the room, remember? And she thought you might take a bit more notice if I was a bit more myself. Smart girl, that Hermione, said Harry, trying to smile. I just wished I'd asked you sooner. We could have had ages, months, years maybe. But you've been too busy saving the wizarding world, said Ginny, half laughing. Well, I can't say I'm surprised. I knew this would happen in the end. I knew you wouldn't be happy unless you were hunting Voldemort. Maybe that's why I like you so much. Harry could not bear to hear those things, nor did he think his resolution would hold if he remained sitting beside her. Ron, he saw, was now holding Hermione and stroking her hair while she sobbed into his shoulder, tears dripping from the end of his own long nose. With a miserable gesture, Harry got up, turned his back on Ginny and on Dumbledore's tomb, and walked around the lake. Moving felt much more bearable than sitting still, just as setting out as soon as possible to track down the Horcruxes and kill Voldemort would feel better than waiting to do it. So in the book, that's when Hermione and Ron are like, "We'll go with you."
Yeah.
And in the movie, Hermione's the one that says, like, "Of course we're gonna go with you," and all this stuff.
Yep.
But in the book, it's Ron who says, "We're with you, whatever happens."
Yeah.
And so it's kind of in the movies, like, Hermione has like taken over a lot of Ron's scenes, which I think is interesting. I don't know what the decision is for that, but yeah, Ron was the one who said that. And then before they go, Ron was like, "There's one thing we have to do before we go. We have Bill and Flora's wedding," and Harry's like, "What? We have Horcruxes to find. Like, we're gonna go to a wedding?" But they decide to take the summer and go back to. Harry's gonna go back to the Dursleys, and then we'll see at the very beginning of Deathly Hallows, the Order of the Phoenix will come get him, and they will. People were gonna start dying. Like, there's so many people that die in just like the first like 3 chapters, and it's gonna be amazing. So yeah, I'll just read the final paragraph of the book because I think it's one of the really good ones. His hand closed automatically around the fake Horcrux, but in spite of everything, in spite of the dark and twisting path he saw stretching ahead for himself, in spite of the final meeting with Voldemort he knew must come, whether in a month, in a year, or in 10, he felt his heart lift at the thought that there was still one last golden day of peace left to enjoy with Ron and Hermione. And I'm just like, man, this is it's such a good book. I love this one. I love this one so much. And I'm so glad that Sam had a good time with it.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, because I was really worried that she was gonna be like, yeah, I'm just kind of done with Harry Potter. And like, I would get it. Believe me, we've been doing a lot of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, you're so close.
Yeah,
like,
you're right
so
there. You're 90%
close.
done. 90% done.
So yeah, I hope everybody has a good time with the Deathly Hallows. I've been like just reading it the past couple days. I'm just like, oh my God, like I forgot how good of a book this is. Like, it's so like right from the beginning, it's so fast paced. It's just like, here we go. Like we are on the ride to go fight Voldemort. Like, this is all leading to this massive final confrontation, and it's going to be brutal. People are going to die. Characters are going to be changed forever and mutilated, and oh man, what a story. Like, I am so excited. So yeah, we'll talk in the podcast chat about
Definitely.
when we're gonna
Yeah.
do that.
Well, I'm gonna start it on the drive over to my parents' place.
Do it. It's so, oh man, it like hooked me as soon as I started. I was like, maybe I'll I just want to listen to like the first couple chapters. That's
Yeah,
all I
you hear
want to
like 10
do.
words, you're like, all right, this is all I'm
Yeah.
going to devote my life to for now.
Yep, and then like those, I went past a couple of chapters, and I was just like working, and I'm like, dude, I gotta just like listen to this until I
Yep.
finish it. Like I gotta just like completely like just consume
Got to
this
go through.
book.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Devour it.
yeah. All right. Well, final thoughts. What did you think of the Half-Blood Prince? Do you have do you have any thoughts on like not necessarily like a ranking, but like kind of where it would be in your favorites?
Yeah. Yeah. I would probably, at least after this read through, I'd probably put it pretty high on
Hmm.
my ranking list. I don't know.
Do you know which one for sure is number one?
No, and I'm not going to decide until after I finish Deathly Hallows this time.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. But from the 5 that we've read, this would place like in the top 1 to 3. Probably,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, dude, maybe I finish Deathly Hallows and that becomes my favorite. Like I'm you
That's kind of the feeling I'm starting to get hearing you
yeah,
talk about it. So
I
it's
know.
kind of,
I'm like, you know me. It's not usually the newest book in a series that's
yeah.
my favorite. Usually it's like the earlier ones. But as I'm reading Deathly Hallows right now, I'm just like, God, it's so good. Like it's so good. Um, so yeah, I'm excited to see what everybody thinks. I'm excited to have a chat about it and
Yep.
everything. So be a good time. Very cool. Let's see. What else do we have coming up? After we finish Harry Potter, I think the thing that replaces Harry Potter, I believe, is the Farseer trilogy.
Weren't we gonna do some Dresden Files too?
Yeah, we got to do some Dresden Files. So I'm kind of wondering if we do Dresden Files next weekend and then we do Deathly Hallows the week
That would
after.
be, I think that would be the best
Yeah.
way. Get a little break from it and then
Yeah.
jump right back into it.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. That'd be a good thing.
Yeah.
Good way to go about it.
Yeah. We got to get Sam to read the Dresden Files.
I know, I know. Oh my God. I
We need to like
convinced
make it a mission for 2025 to
Yeah, she needs to read Dresden Files and then she needs to get off her ass and read King's Dark Tidings.
yeah.
Like, what are you doing? I convinced I was telling you that I was grabbing breakfast with someone yesterday
Yep.
and we've been talking for a while about like books and stuff.
Mhm.
And I told her I was like, "Look, I'm like you have to read King's Dark Tidings. You have to read it like right now."
Yeah.
And I was telling her about our interview with Kelcade, and I was
Yep.
telling her like I'm like I recently just went through the entire series again, and I'm like, you know, nothing can beat Dresden Files for my number one spot, but it's dang
It's
close. Like
close.
it's
It's close.
so close. I'm like I love this series so much. I'm like if you're gonna be like friends with me or whatever, like you have to
Yeah.
read the
It's a
series.
requirement.
Yeah. And so she went onto her phone and downloaded it. And so I'm
Nice.
like I hope the next time I see you, you've
That's
started
right.
it.
Yep. Yep.
So good.
Don't pull a Chris.
Yeah, don't pull a Chris. All right, well, that is the plan. Thanks for hanging out, Gabe and Sam. If you see this later, thanks for hanging out as long as you did. I hope everybody enjoys their Super Bowl parties or whatever. I'm going to be moving on right into another podcast after this one. So, yeah. All right, everyone. It is time once again to go back to our house common rooms and prepare for the next episode of Potter Watch, where we'll be discussing Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Let us know down below in the comments what your favorite Harry Potter moments are, and I'm especially interested to know what you think of the differences between the movies and the books, both from this installment and the ones after. And this is an interesting one to talk about, I think, if you guys will in the comments, because I kind of feel like the movie didn't really change that much. Like I feel like it did a really good job of sticking to the book. It didn't include everything, but it also didn't really like change much
Yeah.
besides the burrow burning down. So yeah, let us know in the comments what you think. And again, you can reach out to us on Twitter, Discord, and Patreon, which are all linked below. We always love chatting with you guys, so feel free to leave us a comment or message us directly. Or if you support us on Patreon, you can watch these episodes live as we record them and participate in the chat, just like Spacey Nova was doing today. But that's it for us today. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And until next time, in memory of Dumbledore, let us step out into the night and pursue that flighty temptress adventure.